Hi, I'm Dr. Carmen Morrison. I'm a psychologist, a brain coach, and a founder here at Alli.
Hi, and I'm Drew Morrison. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am also a coach and a co-founder at Alli.
And we share a same last name, and that's for a very good reason, because
good
he's
amount of
my
genetics.
son. Yeah, good amount of shared genetics going on here. And that actually has a lot to do with our topic for today, which is how our kids can get stuck in anxiety and how we can get stuck trying to figure out how to help them when they're anxious. That is such an anxiety-provoking thing for us as parents.
Yeah.
And we know a lot about that from both sides of it, because when Drew was young, when he was a child, he had a lot of anxieties, a lot of fears about things. And I am not a terribly anxious person, and so sometimes I would just have this feeling of wanting to shake him and be like, would you just stop it? Not the most helpful parenting response.
Right.
And it can be really frustrating, because one of the things that happens, and that happened here, was that your kid is wanting you to do something because they need us, right? So they're looking to us to help them with this awful anxiety that they're feeling. And in your case, one of the examples that comes to mind was he had his bedroom was next to ours, and we would have this bedtime routine, and we'd put him in bed, and I would go get in bed, and then 5 minutes later, Mom, can you tuck me in again? And it started becoming like a routine, and I would just be like, oh my goodness, and I just wanted to yell, no, no, we're not going to do that. And so the challenge for a parent is, how do I respond to my child's anxiety without feeding the anxiety,
right,
or just getting anxious and frustrated myself? And I know for me and for many of us, that's a really tough place to navigate. One of the things that I see happening most for parents is that we want you to feel better. And so we'll be like, okay, I'll come in again. Or when you would be afraid of going out in the dark to take the garbage out, okay, I'll go with you, or I'll do it for you so that you don't feel bad.
Right.
And one of the big things for me is that when we do that, we're actually missing the point. Mm-hmm. Can I say it that way? Mm-hmm. Which is, the point is not to make the feelings of anxiety go away. That's going to wire anxiety into the brain in a hardwired, lifelong way. What we want to do is to help our kid know that they can feel anxious and still be okay, that they can do something with anxious feelings and tolerate that and have things turn out all right.
Right.
So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think, and this is kind of a thread that we love to talk about pretty regularly, because it's so important, right? Especially when we're talking about relationships, especially connecting with kids, right? Is that a big part of helping really anybody, right? But especially kids through hard emotions, I say big emotions, right? Is being able to let them know that you're there and that they're not alone, right? We call that security. There's a lot of different words to describe that, but security, and for them to feel like you're there, right? And to know that you're there. And so, I think a lot of ways to be able to do that is kind of going off of what you were saying too, is that you don't want to just help them, to eradicate the anxiety altogether, right? Because that's, first off, that's really hard.
Or the feelings of anxiety,
correct,
right?
Right, the feelings. And instead really put all your energy and focus into, I understand, right? Like, anxiety
this is hard. This is hard. This is
feel.
scary. This is really hard for you. So we talk about that all the time, the importance of connecting with what our child is feeling and validating that and empathizing and being present with them in that moment.
Right.
But that's very different than leaving them in that moment, or on the other end of just trying to talk them out of the feeling. That's another one we do as parents a lot. Now, there's nothing to be scared of, honey.
Right.
Or we've done this 100 times and nothing bad has ever happened, so it's going to be okay. Like, we try to talk our kid out of what they're feeling.
Which is very logical.
Very logical, but unfortunately, logic happens up here and anxiety happens here. So it doesn't really, they're not even in the same part of the brain at all. So that's why logic just goes doink.
Well, which is why, like, if this is our brain, right? So, like, this is the part where we usually have the logical
Yep.
part, right?
Right up
That's
here.
where all that awesome stuff is happening. But then this, when we flip our lid, right, when we are not in a regulated place, that's when obviously we cannot do the logical processing.
Nope.
And that's what's happening for kids.
Right, and so the
anxiety.
logic doesn't even come in, even though, because usually, think about it yourself when you're anxious.
Right.
Like, you don't need somebody to tell you that doesn't make sense or it's not likely to happen. You already know that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the way it feels. So what's going to help our child is not to teach them how to get away from the feeling or to avoid it. We want to be present with them, but present with them to help them face those anxieties, to help them go into it and find ways to move forward even though they feel anxious.
Right.
Because that gives our child a sense of competence, a sense of what we call resilience, which just means that I can do hard things and still be okay. And that's going to set them up for life then.
Well, it's a skill.
Be able, it's a huge emotional skill, like an emotional muscle.
Yep.
Whereas
won't kill me.
Anxiety will not kill me. I can feel anxious but not die.
Right.
And so it's tolerable.
Yes.
Because I've been anxious as a child. Somebody saw me. Somebody felt what I felt, right? I felt. We talk about that a lot. And somebody helped me face that and realize that I was bigger than the anxiety, that I didn't have to be controlled by the anxiety. So I had somebody help me do that. Now that's wired into my brain, and as an adult, I can do hard things because I've wired into my brain as a child that I am someone who can do difficult things and still be okay.
Right. Absolutely. When I think of, kind of my experience as an adult with anxiety, right? Or really any feeling, right? Like, let's just take any uncomfortable feeling or big feeling that we might feel as adults, right? And then we think of those moments where we've had people come and sit by us and say, this is really hard. You're right. This is really hard. It makes so much sense that you're feeling X, Y, and Z, right? And then you take that, right? Because the way I put it is that we've been on the earth for a while, right, as adults. But then you put it into the body of a child,
brain,
a developing brain who doesn't have the words, doesn't have the skills, because they don't
even
have
the awareness of what it is all happening.
Right.
Sometimes.
They don't have the life experience, right? Resume, very little for kids, right? And that's a lot. That's so much for them to handle, right? So as adults, that sometimes I think we can get into the place of this makes sense, this should be easy, right? Especially if we've talked about it before, right? You know better, you can go a lot of different places with that, right? But when you boil it down, like, kids doing their best they can most of the time. I would say all the
Always,
time.
yeah.
Always, right?
Always,
like
right.
They're not bad kids, that are just trying to be anxious for whatever reason, right? They're just feeling it in a really big way, and they just need someone to be with them and to say, hey, you can be bigger than the anxiety.
And let's do it together, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. So I'm going to help you do it as opposed to say you don't have to do it or you have to do it by yourself.
Right.
I'm going to help you do it.
I love that you say that, like, let's do that together, and what you said earlier too about how that's what the brain wires, right?
Yeah.
Like, the brain then wires that anxiety is something that I can tackle with somebody else. I can do that together.
And I'm not alone in it.
Right? Like, I even think about myself, like, just how powerful that message is, right? And even for you watching this right now, like, how much more, maybe if you didn't have that growing up, how much more would that have impacted you if that had been the message that was where your brain wired, right? And there's never a bad time to start that too, right? So you can start now, and we've got lots of different really wonderful resources to help people start wiring your brain, right? There's never a bad time to start doing that, whether you're an adult. I know we're talking about kids in particular, but even you go back to the conversation about kids too. You can start now, and it doesn't matter where you've been or what the relationship has been
the brain can
you can start right now.
always
Absolutely.
rewire from cradle to grave. Our brains are always being shaped and reshaped, so we're never stuck with the brain that we had as a child.
Yes.
And I think that brings up a really important point, which is that in order to help our kids with anxiety, we have to be able to manage our own anxiety. And so if we haven't been able to do that for ourselves, I guarantee you we're not going to be able to help our kids. So we've got to do that and work on that. And so if anxiety is something that you deal with, that might be something you want to rewire. We have a really great How to Reset Your Brain course. We'll
Ultimate
put the link
Brain
for that.
Reset.
Yep, we'll put the link for that down below. And some different ways to help your children work to wire that in so that they don't have to do the work as an adult to rewire that, because they'll already have that in place. And so we'll drop some of those resources down below. And if this has been helpful to help you think about helping your kids with anxiety in a new way, please like us, subscribe, and check out the resources that we have for you here at Alli. We're all about making sure that we give you proven, practical steps that are not huge things that any of us can do that will rewire our brains so that we can be unstuck, be free to be the people that we want to be, and in this case, the parents that we want to be, so that we can help our children be the children that they want to be.
How cool is that?
That's very cool. I think it's just like a win-win-win-win-win.
Yeah.
And we also have wonderful parent coaches available at Alli to help with some of these things and help walk us through, because we need help, all of us. Nobody changes alone.
Yep.
And so we can put the link for the coaching down below as well, if that's something that you feel would help you take some of these steps to help your anxious self as well as your anxious child. So hope to see you in one of those places, and we'll see you on another video on how to move from stuck to unstuck.